I am so excited about this stuff, and I'm so happy to be sharing with you and with anybody watching, because I was just having a think back before I jumped on this call, and I am 42, and I know I don't look it. That's just the enzymes, but I went for the first time to my doctor looking for help and support when I was about 21, with my digestive issues, and he gave me some peppermint capsules, and that was the end of it. So I've definitely been looking for answers, and on a pretty intensive journey with my health for the past. I did my first major sort of 10-day fasting in 2010, so that's 13 years ago. So definitely been on the search for things, and I do feel like, and I don't share everything I do. I've done some real weird and wacky things, but once I found ZENCLEANZ, I think, through the divine, I was obviously finally ready for some answers. I felt thoroughly compelled to share it because I finally was like, this is it. This is something that's actually working. So really, really happy to share it with people. And I've been I almost didn't really want to, because I was like, it didn't feel, but I felt compelled, like I couldn't not share it. So yeah, very happy to be here. So I started in January this year. I did my first 1-day intestinal cleanse, and having done, again, long term sort of 10-day flushes. I used to go to Thailand to a special place and do these really intensive cleanses, and I had some mucoid plaque out before, but it was at the end of the second 10-day fast after months of raw. So the amount of effort and fasting and harsh herbs and all this kind of stuff that I'd taken and gone through to get some mucoid plaque out was quite intense, right? Like it's not for that path isn't for everybody. It's really not accessible to everybody to have that amount of time, the finances to fly to Thailand to be able to do that. So when I did a 1-day cleanse and I got massive amounts of mucoid plaque out, I was like, wait, there's something really special going on here. I actually didn't quite believe it. So that was the first thing for me, was realizing that it was also not horrendous tasting or anything. So I was like, okay, it wasn't a terrible day. And then I've had this dramatic expelling of things. So I was really excited by that. To be able to sort of get that level of cleansing pretty quickly. So that was one thing I was really excited about. And then it was really more subtle things, like my energy went bananas, like off the charts. I had this high. I actually had to phone a friend, and I was like, I don't even know what's happening. Do you feel like this in real life? Like, I didn't even know it was almost possible to feel that good without some sort of other, thing, to make you feel that good. And even then, I don't think I've ever felt that good regardless. So there was some sort of like high, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? So that was really exciting for me as somebody who's suffered on and off with sort of chronic fatigue, adrenal stress, all the weight things and digestion things and heavy metals and all the usual sort of issues people have. To have that level of, and I'd also had major brain fog and things. So that level of energy was something I was like, oh, I'm onto something here. There must be something that wasn't connecting in my body, and these things are providing it. So that really got me hooked. And then the other realization I had, and then they became a little more subtle, right? So then I was like, okay, also I got some gallstones out just with doing the 1-day intestinal cleanse. So I was like, okay, if I'm already getting gallstones out, I've not even tried doing the gallbladder flush. One, my liver is definitely talking to me and wants to get some out. And two, this is really powerful. So that was awesome as well. But then here's a more subtle one. I tell people all the time they should meditate more. But I often really struggled to stop and allow myself to drop into it. So my body was chronically in my sympathetic, so sort of unable to switch into my parasympathetic healing mode. And so for me, trying to meditate sometimes felt like I was dying. And I know that sounds really dramatic, really over the top. You're like, what, you just sit and shut your eyes? But the amount of resistance I had to dropping in and meditating was I knew it was prohibitive in my life. Now I've done tons of sort of antibiotics and all sorts of things trying to kill parasites before I knew better. And I think something in me had also had my wisdom teeth out. Something in me had sort of switched me into this sympathetic that I was struggling to get back out of. And that one cleanse dropped me into my parasympathetic. It dropped me out of fight and flight mode. And I was able to sit in these blissful meditations. I was craving it. I was just able to drop in really easily. And that was something that was quite a profound shift for me, because I know the power of visualization and meditation. And I was sometimes only able to reach that with plant medicines and other kind of journeys that I would go on. And so to be able to drop into that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a game changer. So that felt really profound for me. And it dropped off a little bit, but each time I've done another one, I've had more ease, and it's continuing. So it's definitely something that's more easeful now for me, and I don't have the same resistance to it, which is really wonderful. So that was, I thought, a subtle thing, but also profound for me. And then so yeah, this calmness, and then my creativity went off the charts. So I've been in a bit of a slump. I hadn't been creating, I hadn't been painting or writing, which is my usual things that I love to do. And woof, I was like off. I was like just writing loads. I've started writing a book. And some of these things I felt like they've been sort of trapped inside of me. And I wasn't always able to get them out. So again, just from that first one cleanse was just such a profound shift for me. And also I've had some sort of mood things going on, and I felt like I was like at 42, I was maybe a little perimenopausal, and I was like, I am too young for this nonsense. I'm not ready for that yet. And my cycle had been quite short, sort of at the 23-day kind of thing. So it was coming around really often. And then I'd also had a few spells of it being more like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And I was like, what is happening? I'd had some hot flushes, and I was like, I can't be going through this already. So the other thing, having done others ones subsequently, is my cycle is now bang on 28 days. So that's phenomenal. Probably part of my body not being so stressed and now being able to sort of do its resting and recovering. So I also had my first pain-free cycle. So often I have to take some ibuprofen or something to deal with the pain. So I had a pain-free cycle for the first time, which was brilliant. And I'd say that all of my sort of perimenopause symptoms have gone, which is amazing as well. And then other random things that I've noticed since then I did another one day, which was I had another phenomenal release, and I was like, okay, great, this is exciting. Again, energy up, creativity going. So I was like, okay, I've done 2 of those. I'm really excited now to do a liver cleanse. And I was just sharing with you before we go on, I did my first one the old way in 2010, and I did a series of them over the years. Maybe I'd done like 7 or 8, maybe, in the 13 years. And I knew my body wanted to do a liver cleanse. Like, it was shouting at me. I'd also had this thing that was going on that was kind of something I was not dealing with emotionally, that I was hanging on to and I just couldn't let go of. And I knew it wasn't healthy for me to have that. My liver was just, yeah, screaming at me, is the best way I could say it. But my body was saying, I bought all the things. I bought my Epsom salts and I had my grapefruits and I had all the things there to do a flush the old way, the way I've done in the past. But my body was in such resistance to the Epsom salts that I just wasn't doing it. So I'm in more resistance and I know that it's not good and I know I need to do a flush. Anyway, along comes the Forgive Cleanse. So I've done one of those. And again, I had a profound result, which was amazing again. I'm just gonna keep talking, but I hope that's okay. So I had this profound release with this liver cleanse, and I know many people, it's called the Forgive for a reason. I didn't know what it was, and I woke up in the middle of the night, had my realization, and went, aha, and went back to sleep. So I knew what it was I was releasing, which was great. And again, having done a bunch of these cleanses, I thought I kind of knew what to expect. And I did the extra flush, one extra flush the following day. And I got my release the following day after that. And it was just humongous, massive, like mental, so much sludge, which is gross, but so important to get out. And then I had all these gallstones covered in layers and layers and layers of fatty bile. I didn't even know you could get these. They looked like soapstones. I actually dug them out because I was like, what are these things? And I would say one of them was probably not far off the size of a golf ball. Like at least 2/3 of the size of a golf ball, no exaggeration. And I had multiple of these things. I'm sure that it'd come out of my liver rather than my gallbladder, but I just couldn't even believe it. And I had no pain. So people are always like, oh God, that looks so painful. And I'm like, no pain, no difficulty. It's all like dissolved by these beautiful enzymes. So I didn't have to take any sort of stuff beforehand to dissolve, you just do them all in that one day. No Epsom salts, which was just phenomenal. And then just this huge amount of sludge that came out with these huge, big, solid things. And then I had tons more stones and I had liver flukes. And I've never, in any of my flushes or any of my other subsequent things I've done, I've never been aware of getting a ton of liver flukes out, but this was liver fluke city. So I was like chuffed to bits to get them out. So they're liver parasites, which is not fun, but I drank my way through my 20s pretty solidly. And so I definitely knew my liver was not functioning. I wasn't processing fats well in my diet and that kind of thing. I could not cope with alcohol anymore. So I knew there was something going on. So since then, again, this mad surge of energy, just this, it was like pulsating through me. Like I almost didn't even know what to do with it. I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like just phenomenal. Creativity, woof, writing like crazy. It was just bananas, feeling just so fresh, so much better. I think my eyes are brighter, my skin looks better. I've only maybe had one glass of champagne since, so I haven't really tested out to see if I can handle alcohol better, but I'm not really in that mode because I'm in healing mode. But just feeling generally a whole lot better. And then there's a few other really subtle things I've been noticing. My hair is not falling out like it used to. I used to wash my hair and it's like just clumps. It would just come out in clumps. I have a lot of hair. It's not really noticeable, but just a huge amount. I was like, how do I still have any hair on my head at all with the amount that's falling out? But I washed my hair today before this interview and there was like 8 strands, like almost nothing fell out. So it's like, this stuff is really working. And it's these smaller little subtle things that I think you almost wouldn't notice. Like you're like, oh, what? And then I had a mole that's been like kind of disintegrating. And I didn't know that moles, where they had come from or why they were there. And I was like, oh, I see, right. Because I had developed them over the years and I didn't know they were sort of signs of things that weren't working in my body as well. So yeah, my moles and sort of little bits and sort of things have been disappearing. I had a rash, a sort of skin irritation thing that would recur and recur and recur. It's gone as well, which is something that, like, again, it was like this sort of subtle thing, and I didn't notice it had gone until it was like a month later, and I was like, where's that gone? It's great, excellent. Because when you're feeling good, you sometimes forget all the little bad things that had been there. And like, I also had recurring, it's not very pleasant athlete's foot for many years, gone. My nails are feeling really long and strong. And it's just, it's like these sort of subtle things that you then start taking for granted that are happening. I'm like, wait a second, could that be because of that stuff? You know, like, it's, I mean, but there's no other explanation for any of these shifts, because I haven't really changed anything else. So I'm like, oh, and then you think, what else can I do? Like, how else? Like, this is me. I'm, you know, I'm obviously like just getting started with this. So I'm really super excited. And so I've just had delivered yesterday another Forgive cleanse. So I got that, and I've got my quantum particles and some Jing, and I've got some black vacuum. So I'm working with some of these extra particles as well, which is really exciting. And I'm like so excited. I'm going to do it next week. I've got the right days aligned with the moon in my diary for next week, to do my next Forgive. And I'm just excited to see the levels I can get to with that. And to see what the next subtle kind of changes are. And it's I've been shouting about it from the rooftops, because I think all humans, let's just be honest, all humans need this. I think especially sort of this perimenopausal, premenopausal stage, you know, a lot of friends who are a bit older are like, oh, it's so hell, and they're just going straight on these HRT or whatever from the doctor. And, you know, you hear the horror stories of, you know, in a few years' time, you know, they've got breast cancer or whatever. And I was just like, I just want to make whatever this transition my body needs to go through in the next whatever 5-10 years, as smooth as possible. And I didn't realize how important like your liver and your gallbladder were, for instance, for regulating your hormones and things like that. And so I just know that every one of these things I do and stack up now are going to pay dividends for me in the journey through the inevitable menopause, over the next however many years. So that feels really good. And I feel as well like, the other thing that I really liked when I did my cleansing in Thailand, when I did it in, you know, over the years, I've done so many different things. I've always felt really depleted afterwards. I'm knackered. And I feel like, yes, they might kill some things, but they always leave you kind of stripped, you know, intestinally or emotionally, or whatever, just exhausted. And I think for this to leave me so high and so full of energy is such a gift, because I'm craving the next one, rather than being like, oh, like, I don't want to go through it, because I know I'm going to get this amazing high afterwards, and obviously it will last for longer next time. Hopefully, you know, I'll get into that place where I'm just flying high all the time. So that makes me want to do more. I mean, there's obviously moments of it being a bit uncomfortable, and you have to kind of get the stuff down. You're like, oh, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And yeah, I just think everyone I know should do this. Absolutely everybody. I think there's almost nobody that I know is so healthy that they wouldn't benefit from this. Like, not a single person. And so especially like the mums who are knackered and premenopausal and all this kind of stuff, like struggling with their weight. I've really found like my cravings are different. I feel fuller quicker. I'm not eating as much. So there's obviously that knock-on effect as well, which is amazing. And so, yeah, I think everybody should be doing this for your, you know. And the other thing, just really quickly, I'm sure I've been rabbiting on this whole time. You haven't even had a word, but like, at my age, again, this 42 bracket, I'm seeing people a couple of years older than me, who live healthy lives or sort of entrepreneur types doing their own businesses and stuff, getting organs whipped out. So there was one lady I follow, she's like a mum of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 children, I don't know, many children, runs a big organization, very successful. And she was in, I see on Instagram, it's her in her hospital bed, just got my pesky gallbladder whipped out. I'll be back to, whatever soon, guys. And I was just like, your gallbladder is not a pesky organ that you just get whipped out at the first sign of any trouble. Like, it is like, I don't know. People just think like, oh, like God must have made some mad mistake when he created the gallbladder. Obviously not needed. And I don't think people realize that if you don't have one, the bile is still produced and just drips into your intestines. And it can cause all sorts of digestive issues, chronic diarrhea, all sorts of horrible things that people then will suffer with for the rest of their life potentially, or have to take something else. Or I have another guy that I know, and he's like, oh, so I'm getting a kidney out this year. And I was like, are you? Do you need to? And it hadn't even occurred to him that there was maybe another option, right? So again, young guy, he's like, oh, it was only at, I don't know, 22% or 17% or something. And I'm thinking, yeah, you get that one whipped out, but whatever root cause issue caused this kidney to not be functioning at optimal levels, if you ain't solving that, what do you think is going to happen to your other one, right? Hello, it's not rocket science. It's going to get clogged up too, because if you don't change your diet or the emotional thing or whatever factor was the fear that was feeding into your kidney problems, it's not solving the issues. And so I think we're so quick to just get something chopped out if it's bothering us, and I've just learned recently, even, as my sister had her tonsils whipped out, and I think so many children had their tonsils taken out. That's the one thing I think I skipped, when I had every other issue known to man. But I didn't realize it was actually an integral part of your lymph system. And I'm like, they're just whipping those out, regardless, or your thyroid, and it's like, you've got options, people. Like, there are options. And the beautiful journey with ZENCLEANZ, you go on the journey and you cleanse one system after another, and you get this beautiful whole body detox. And my ultimate goal is to never ever see a doctor again. Because I'd done all the testing, and go get my blood work done, and I go to this specialist guy, and I get the thing where you blow into the tube and you take the other things, and the allergy testing and this testing, and you name it, I have been there and paid the $1,000, right? And so much of that just got me nowhere, because one doctor was like, oh, we don't know why you're anemic. He said, we're not smart enough to know why. And now I think back, that was only a couple of years ago, and I'm like, no, you weren't smart enough to figure it out. I know why. Right? So now I know that parasites, feast on heavy metals, and that's most of the time why you end up with low iron. And this is my holistic doctor didn't even know why. And so I'm like going, who are we listening to? What are we allowing them to do to our bodies, to our children's bodies, to anybody else? So, I don't even want to go to another naturopath, right? I'm over, no offense to you guys, I love you all, but like, nothing is getting me any results. And trust me, I've tried that ZENCLEANZ is. And I have one last little bit, is I use the analogy of, like, I've been to so many different naturopaths and all these people, and they are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but they often just give you a list of like 10 supplements, and you have to then take all these supplements, and you might see an incremental shift, you might not. But I call that showering with your clothes on, right? Compared to ZENCLEANZ, right? You're showering with your clothes on, because unless you're getting in and getting the mucoid plaque out, getting the sludge and the stones and the built up fatty bile deposits or whatever the heck is congested in your system, and the kidney stones and the mucus, all these supplements are, I just think you're just putting them down the drain as you shower with your clothes on. So it's, you know, it's money I've spent tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands on all these supplements. I have done that. I'm not making anyone wrong who does that or prescribes that. But until you take your clothes off and cleanse these systems, I don't think any of that is really going to make a whit of difference in the long term. So it's, you know, it's a combo, no one size fits all, but I think we need to be getting naked, cleaning it out, and then maybe you need your other supplements or the other things or whatever. But I think allowing, and these enzymes are more active than anything else I've ever taken. You certainly shouldn't be getting your vitamins at the supermarket, right? Like, it's all trash. And I didn't realize that for many years either, you know. So, you know, we think we're doing our best, we think we're, you know, we're figuring it out, but most of the time we're just doing things that make absolutely no difference at all. And it's just costing us a whole ton of money. So yeah, ZENCLEANZ, it's not cheap, but I think compared to all the other stuff I've done, I mean, the tens and tens and tens of thousands I've spent trying everything else, I think it's probably the best money anyone could spend on their health, hands down. Like, there's nothing else you could convince me to do that would make a bigger difference for the price point. You don't need to get on a plane, you don't need to do anything else fancy, no other practitioners, no more testing, no more other shit. Just do this.